Hi, preschool peeps. Welcome back to the second special episode of How Preschool Teachers Do It. We said on the last episode that in the last week there were some announcements in our area about the school year remaining as is through the rest of this academic year, that the schools are not reopening, and that caused some chatter in the early childhood community. So in our last episode, we talked about the end of the school year and summer a little bit. And in this episode, I want to look a little bit further even towards September. Allison and I were talking about some information that I received from schools on the West Coast and things that are being thought about here as far as regulations for the very early learners, for those in pre-K and younger. And I read those regulations and texted Allison and said, get this. How is this working? How is this working? You know, putting children in outlined boxes where they can't go beyond that. And they're like, how is the average 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds staying in their box? Giving them toys they're not allowed to touch anybody else's. How does that teach them any kind of socialization skills? What's the purpose of that? Right. And so we were talking about basically, do the risks outweigh the benefit of a preschool atmosphere or an infant, toddler, and preschool atmosphere that's like that? And the bottom line really is that if those age groups need to reopen, that it has to do with families needing childcare so that if their job still exists, they can go back to work. And I completely get that. I think the question is, how feasible is it going to be before we have a treatment or a vaccine for everyone, including the teachers, to stay safe? Because it's going to become the same sort of thing as in healthcare, where we were saying we can't overwhelm the healthcare workers. We also need them to be healthy. The same is true for teachers. I read an article, I didn't mention this to you earlier, Allison, so I'm going to pop it out there now. Okay. I read an article that there's a large percentage of the teaching population in the at-risk age groups because they're over a certain age. And so what are they going to be able to continue to work? Are the teachers going to get sick and now we won't have them?
Yeah, and you have teachers who have underlying health issues already. Yeah, that might not be older, but they still have like a pre-existing condition and they're able to work normally, but they can't work during this. Yeah, I mean,
how are we doing no more than 10 kids in a class when buildings weren't set up for that? And you don't have extra classrooms lying around and extra staff you can hire to make that happen. If we were to do, some people have suggested staggered schedules or alternating days. How does that help the average working family who has to be working 40 hours a week? I don't know that that is a great help to everyone. I think there are so many questions and unknowns and things that every time someone says, what about this? 10 people come back and say, but this. So I don't even know great solutions, except I said this to Allison, and Allison had so many great points to make that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to let you talk way more than maybe in the last episode. Not let you, but invite, or I'm going to shut up.
Like, gee, thanks. I am the co-host here.
Yeah, you are. I know. Last episode, I did a lot of the talking because I had the information.
It's all right.
So
it's a give and take here. That's what we do.
Yeah, it truly is. There are episodes where you're more. So I said to Allison in our casual conversation about this, I said, here's what I wonder. If it's not feasible in how we have done early childhood settings in the past, perhaps what needs more of our attention now are family childcare settings, helping them to institute policies that may be slightly easier for them because they take less children at a clip. And because they're in a different kind of environment, and maybe what the country should be looking to do actually is beef up family childcare and give them more support than they ever did before. Family childcare people have often told me that they feel like the stepchildren of early childhood settings, right?
Yeah, because they were kind of treated that way. Yeah,
they were, regulations had, and licensing and all that tended to come out first and lean toward larger settings and more like institution settings. But I think family childcare was shortchanged to begin with. Not given enough support to begin with. And now they possibly could save some of us So
Yeah.
Allison, you were saying such great stuff earlier about family childcare.
Well, I think now I can't even think of that. Rusty coming in here just distracted me. I think, yeah, for a long time, family childcare was not treated the same as the standalone building childcare centers. But I think that's the way to go. I think you could really help a lot of people. My concern is there's not a lot of them. There's not many of them, and they can only take a certain amount of children at a time, and it's not going to be enough. So I think now we need to reevaluate that, like what can we turn to here? Like, can we have teachers who are normally a teacher in a childcare center become a family childcare center, because they have the certification and they have the experience, but they would have to then do it in their home. And are they willing to do that? And if you are, that might be a way to get more of them.
And can we provide more professional development for the people who are already doing family childcare?
Yeah.
Can we give them more incentives than we have in the past?
Yeah.
Right. Incentive money hasn't always gone the family childcare route, and it needs to.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It's yeah, they don't get enough incentive. I think this is a way to keep things safer, because you would have whole families, children and families going to one location, you know what I mean? Instead of them being split into different rooms or different, whatever, they would all stay together. And I think that would keep it safer for people, because it would be like one unit going to the family child care center rather than like one child going to this center because he's this age and one child going to this school because they're that age. You would keep them all together, and then the family child care provider is only exposed to that unit. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. So what you're saying is right. Like if we think about siblings, right? And siblings go to the same childcare provider. And what you end up with essentially then are several cooperating families who agree to social distance, who agree to teach their children about hand washing or masks or whatever. They agree to certain things along with the family childcare provider. So what you've essentially got are these cooperative groups of families sheltering in place, right?
Yes.
And I think we talked about that in a prior episode about families coming together maybe and having agreements to help each other out. And if we incorporate family childcare as part of that, I feel like the settings are in a lot of ways really doable.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word, doable for this situation.
My cousin posted this article on Facebook that I found kind of interesting. I actually think it's from Canada. And it was like once they start reopening things up, they want to allow you to have like a bubble family, I think it was called. And so then say I drove to your house, Cindy, and we would then shelter in place together as one bigger unit that could be up to 8 people or something like that. But you would stay. Now that is your new unit. You would stay with that unit. Because I think they're concerned about the mental health issues of people like, say, me, that live by myself. So they were saying once they reopen a little bit, you could choose your bubble family. It could be either a friend or your cousin or your mom or whoever. And
your
then once
family.
Because they envision that they'll have to shut back down again. And once you shut back down again, you be with that bubble family.
Okay, I get that. Yeah. And all I can think about is that old movie, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. That's all I can think about right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they called it. It's I don't know if it's. You understand because it's so it's kind of like that.
If you've never seen Boy in the Plastic Bubble, if you have
Bubble
Amazon
Boy
Fire
from
Stick or another streaming thing.
Is it like that? Like Bubble Boy from Seinfeld?
So it's this movie. I think I'm going to date myself, severely date myself. It may be from a story from the 1970s. There was an actual person who had no immune system. And so this boy they created this bubble in the house where the air was purified or something, and no one could go in the bubble. And there actually are, I mean, sadly, it's, you know, in all seriousness, there are children born with immune systems that don't work. And so they are put in these purified air things that in this movie, it was called the plastic bubble. And the movie is called Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I'm going to highly recommend it.
Well, I think
so everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Well,
so
also in a way, aren't we all
plastic bubble, and then he fell in love with somebody outside the bubble. So the dilemma became: does he risk his life and leave the bubble because he's always wanted his freedom? You have to watch the movie.
It's kind of like what we're living with right now, in a way. I mean, we're not all immunocompromised like that, but
I'm the mom who always made her children watch these old movies, so my children are familiar with Boy in the Plastic Bubble. And my son, in the beginning of this, said, "This is reminding me of Boy in the Plastic Bubble," which did my heart so good because I love that they know older movies.
Yeah.
So
it's true. So we're in isolation.
But when you say pick your bubble family, I
think that's what it was called. I feel I'd hate to
watch the movie and get back to me. Get back to me on a future episode. Yeah. But I do think if we're talking about these sort of bubble families, then we can do bubble families and family child care provider.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think some of the people who are worried about, you know, maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, what are you saying? They should shut down my school or my center or that's not going to work for me. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we need to think about a different environment to do it in.
Yeah.
We're still going to get paid for doing it.
Yeah.
But I think we need to think about the different environments to do it in. If teachers are saying to me, my classroom or my school isn't set up for this because we have this many kids, they're telling us 10 in a group, they're telling us,
I don't think there's any
keep the kids. They're saying to the kids, keep the kids in the classroom. They go nowhere. Wouldn't it be better to have them in your living room or something?
Where they can actually live a little bit?
Like, I don't know.
Because for me, there's no school that is equipped to deal with the amount of social distancing that you would need to do, which first off, little kids just can't do that. But also if you're an older kid, you're stuck in your classroom all day, eating your lunch in there, wearing a mask all day with 10 other kids. Is that education? Is that learning? I mean, I don't know. And
maybe it's part of a larger question. Like these buildings that we've used and this setup that we've had needs to be rethought.
Right. But it's a big budget issue too.
I know.
So if you need to then hire more teachers where there's already not enough teachers, but you need to split this class of 30 into now 3, you need to hire 2 more teachers and somehow find 2 more classrooms to put those kids in. You know, like how are you, without building additions to schools, how are you going to do that? You know, I mean, I saw this article where the teacher was like measuring the desks to make sure the desks were certain.
I saw that article too.
I get that, but are you expecting that child to sit in that desk for 6 hours, for even an hour? They're not allowed to move around their classroom. There's also like this issue of like, what if they need to go use the bathroom? Okay. And so like, they're going to go into the bathroom that's in the hall that's used by every single grade. And what is somebody going to be in there cleaning it after every single person goes in there? And you're going to make sure one kid goes in there at a time. I mean, how are you doing this? How do you, the buses also, like, how are you doing this? It's just, that's why I feel like you have to, and if you're saying that schools need to reopen because people do need to go back to work, there's no way to do that without saying, then let's do family childcare. Let's figure out this family childcare so that there are more of them and it's more available and people can get back to work by sending their children to the family childcare, because schools were just not ready for that, I don't think.
I want to say this about family childcare too. I know some awesome people who provide family childcare who did it before this crisis, during this crisis, and will continue to do it after this crisis. And I just don't think I can say enough that there's been an undervaluing of their work. And I think, and I think that they may be one of the things, not the only thing, but one of the things that we need to think about for the future. And the fact that maybe the spotlight should now be on the great work they can do, have done, continue to do, and can do in the future.
Yeah.
As states try to get out of this crisis.
Yeah.
I don't
think
know.
that's one good thing that has come of this crisis is that we are now valuing people that weren't valued before. You know,
yeah,
the work that a lot of
true.
people do was just kind of overlooked. And now we're realizing like, well, we need those people and they should be valued. You know, those truck drivers, the grocery store workers, the family child care centers, the child care centers that stayed open because they're essential, healthcare workers, firefighters, police officers, all these people that were just like, whatever before. Now people are like, no, like those are the people that keep society going. You know, without them, our society does not work. You know, but to overlook it because you were in your own bubble before, I think, of like whatever. It's now I think people are realizing like, well, maybe family childcare needs to be thought of and valued just as much as the centers that are open, just as much as anything else, you know. And it's making people look at things differently, and we should be looking at things differently. We should be.
I don't think that you should experience a trauma and come out without having improved in some way. Well, that's my sort of life take.
It's kind of my worry though. This is one thing that gives me anxiety is that once this all happens and they reopen, that everybody's just going to try to go back to normal. And I don't want it to go back.
I think we can. I don't think
But I think there's a lot of people who already think that, you know, like, and they're like, oh,
well, it's not going to happen. So they're going to have to adjust. I think that the children, the families, and the educational institutions and professionals have been forever changed by this.
Yeah.
And we need to think about, instead of trying to recapture what did work, we need to think about what we need to put in place to make sure it continues to work in the future. And so if nothing else, I hope that this episode gives people food for thought.
Yeah.
And, you know, big giant shout out to you family childcare providers who never stopped working in this crisis. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about working online. I'm talking about working in person with the children. Just like the child care centers who are open for essential workers' children, family child care folks, a lot of them have been open too. Yeah. So let's give them kudos too, because they're taking families into their homes. And that's a big deal right now. But maybe we can make that safer and give them more dollars and more help and more guidance than has been given in the past, so that we can make it work.
Yeah.
I look forward to the day where the bulk of this is behind us, where there's a treatment or a vaccine so that the majority of people are immune and we can actually return to some semblance of what we've done before, though I think we need to be prepared for it ever happening again. That we've learned we were not prepared in so many ways. From the government on down, no one was prepared for this sort of thing. And so we have to do better. Sometimes I watch our governor and other governors talking about the lessons we're learning from this. Educationally, folks, we have lessons to learn from this too.
Yeah.
About where to put focus and dollars and incentives, and how to actually have emergency plans for this sort of closing and all of that. We have to think about our school years, how they're designed, how our buildings are designed, what is and isn't feasible, and who we need to lean on. So I hope that in the coming weeks, family child care folks feel very valued, because they're going to be needed.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see what the news brings next and what we're going to talk about next. Oh my goodness.
Every day a different story comes out.
Oh yeah.
We'll see.
We appreciate those of you who've reached out to us to share with us how much these episodes have meant to you and how much our podcast means to you. It lifts our spirits, right, Allison? It lifts us up. Does. And it keeps us doing this. There was a moment maybe 2 weeks ago where Allison and I said, should we keep on going? And then it was like a message from the universe. We started to get all sorts of things that told us we need to keep going. So we thank you all for that. Please do contact us. You can reach us through our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. There's a contact form. We also have our own Facebook page, How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast Facebook page. And so feel free to like that page and keep track of what we're posting and what's going on. On our website, by the way, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com, there are some resources that we talked about in earlier episodes that are posted there. And we hope that you all stay safe, take care, subscribe, and give us 5 stars and good ratings. as we try to help you navigate through this crazy crisis.
Yeah.
So, bye peeps.
Bye, stay well.